Hi and welcome back to my channel. I know what you're thinking, John, that's not a CNC. But it is a flying robot and even more fun to use. Bear with me though, because the relevance will all make sense very soon. I'm John and this is my flying frog, and I need to make something on the CNC to help me fly it. Clearly I need some help with the microphone too, as I had to narrate all this afterwards. And we're back in the workshop, and today's video, to be honest with you, is a little bit self-indulgent because I have a problem. And it isn't just a problem of the microphone not working when I filmed outside earlier. What it is, when I'm flying my CNC and I've got the screen, my phone on top of the controller, I can't see the screen quite often when the big yellow thing appears in the sky, which to be fair isn't that often where I live, but when it does appear it's an absolute pain. And I found out recently, I started using an iPhone on it just to test it. It has a much darker screen than I'm used to on Android, so that makes it even worse. So I need a drone shade. And yeah, I know I could go and buy one, they're not massively expensive, but you know, when you've got a machine, why not do it yourself? And I hope you can hear me okay over the noise. I'm just personalising some parts for some people, so I thought I'd do that while I'm making this video. Anyway, I had this idea that it can't be that hard to make, just need to work out what's the best solution to do it. Now, being the way I am, I like to try and find and use what material I've got lying around, if I can, and it's not always possible. But I started out with what we call in the UK Foamex. It's a sign plastic, a sign PVC. It's widely available. It's basically a thick PVC. They call it foam PVC. It's kind of expanded, but it's kind of a thickish material. And I made this rather ugly attempt, and thought, I know, I'll try gaffer tape as the kind of hinge system. And it works, you know, it kind of creates a little hinge, but by God is it ugly. That is absolutely appalling, but it proved in theory that that kind of worked. So we got rid of that, and I hunted around for some kind of suitable hinge to use this material, and the best solution I could come up with, and it was again just as bad to be fair, was using conduit. So I cut slots in the plastic and use some conduit, and you know, it does kind of work. It kind of creates a little drone shade, kind of shaped like that. The trouble is, it's quite bulky, and as you're unfolding it and refolding it, these conduits come apart, and as an idea it was okay, but it didn't quite cross the finishing line, shall we say. And then I realised I actually had, all the time, the right material staring me in the face. It's literally been on the screen the whole time I've been talking to you. And it's something we use frequently here, because we used to, well, we don't use it as much now. I've got a lot of leftovers I use for all sorts of projects. But we used to manufacture photo booths, hence the silly hat in one of the previous videos. And we used this for the outer skins because it was lightweight, durable and easy to convey, and you can roll it up. The downside to it is it comes rolled up, and therefore it's an absolute pain to machine because it is, take those off for a bit, it is rolled up and it's very difficult to get to lay flat, even with a vacuum. In fact, the vacuum is just about as useless on that as anything else. But the material I'm referring to is this bit behind. Can you see that on there? I even have a piece here that when I'm cutting the metal, I'll be putting this on shortly, I just clip on the front and it stops some of the chips coming towards me. And that's the same sort of material. And it's thin polypropylene. And the cool thing about it is that you can make what's called a mechanical hinge with it. That means you can put a crease in it, or you can put a fold in it, and it will just keep flexing on that fold forever and a day. It's very, very difficult to get it to break. It's very, very impact resistant and extremely lightweight. And so I made one in white. Obviously white isn't particularly good for a drone shade, but you know, all the colour I've got is white. And it works. And it just goes together. There's no Velcro on this, hasten to add, so it won't stay together. Just folds up, goes together, and you get the gist of it. like that. Don't see it. The material was perfect. The downside was, as I said, all mine was white, so I needed to find something black, and that's what we've done today. So now, sorted the supplier out, put a link in the description, no affiliation to it whatsoever, but I'll put a link down there in case anyone else wants to get some. It is available elsewhere, black polypropylene. I think there's a US supplier I can also list if I can remember who it was I found over there. But today's video is going to be about me cutting this stuff out to make a black version of what I've just shown you, or one similar to it. I've tweaked the file a little bit since. I'll probably keep tweaking it anyway, because I also intend to make a bigger one for an iPad size in the future as well. But at the moment I just need to get this first one cut. So as soon as my jobs are finished today, marking out the material, I'll video me cutting out the polypropylene and we'll see how it gets on. Now onto the CNC itself. As you see, I've had to use some drawing pins to pin down the polypropylene, and I know I'm going to have to hold it down too, as it's even curlier than I remember, but then it has sat on the shelf for a couple of months in its box. Incidentally, you can cut this on a laser if you can hold it down. So I'm starting with a spring-loaded diamond tip drag bit, set to a light pass at a depth of cut about 1mm spring depression. I'm using this to initially score the plastic where I want it to fold eventually. I normally have this set to about 2.5mm depression when I'm engraving something like aluminium. But the material is only 0.8mm thick, so I don't want a big indent. And I seem to remember on the white one I did to make this the test piece, I did this all with a not so sharp craft knife, and it worked just as well. Believe it or not, it's not that easy to cut with a knife. It's far easier to cut this stuff with a guillotine or scissors. Even so, I gently scored it and it worked perfectly. So if you want to do it that way, you can do. But let's see how the drag bit does. I'm switching to a single flute DLC cutter, 2mm in diameter. We use DLC coated bits for a lot of plastic and aluminium work, and it does a fantastic job on all sorts of. Now I confess, I did forget to turn off the spiral or ramp down on the settings, which is why it appears to be going around everything twice. Now look at that, you can see the plastic curl the moment it's cut free. If it was any thicker material I'd be extremely concerned, as it could damage the bit. Here I'm more worried about the bit damaging the edge of the part. This is not the ideal way to cut it. I do have a future video planned on using a pressure plate. It would help enormously here, as might a down cut bit for that matter too. Anyway, all cut and no harm done, but I must get that vacuum bed fixed. God, look at that, it looks like he's been tortured here. He's tough though, so now I'm working around those creases even after the drag knife scored it. It is fun to try and get a crease into it. But as I stated earlier, once you get a fold made, it will continue to fold back and forward on that line forever and a day, making this material perfect for any covering that you need to store flat and open into a shape. And the more it's worked, the easier it gets, and surprising how strong it is. Spent a few more minutes folding, refolding, and I've spared you all from that. Another property of polypropylene I didn't mention is it's resistant to a lot of chemicals and isn't that easy to bond together as a result. And we need to use some Velcro on this to close it. It's self-adhesive Velcro. Now you can buy this in different strengths. I use a permanent or strong adhesive, but even then it doesn't always adhere straight away. And what you need to do is once you've applied it, you will need to leave it for 24 hours for the adhesive to work and to bond. If you haven't got any permanent Velcro, perhaps it might work with some super glue. I've never tested it, but it may be worth giving it a go. And so that's it all done. It does take up a lot less room in my case, which is fantastic. It's only right now that we go and test it with the drone. Yes, it was more of a challenge to cut it this way. It could have been improved using the subject of my next video, a pressure plate. Nevertheless, it's all done and it works. And if you did like all this, please do give it a thumbs up, as it helps more people have the chance to see it. You can also subscribe for more CNC videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.